So today's episode of Science of Energy is about amygdala hijack and the speed of emotions. Have you ever snapped at someone only to regret it the moment the words came out of your mouth? Or have you been triggered without really knowing what was happening, why you were reacting so strongly? Well, there is a scientific reason behind that, and that is emotional signals reach the brain way before your rational thoughts can form. Actually, 200 to 500 milliseconds before prefrontal cortex is triggered. Our emotions are actually 500,000 times faster than rational thoughts. And they have access to much more information as well. But that's going to be the subject of another episode. So what happens is we have regions in our brain that are responsible for our survival and for receiving emotional signals from ourselves and from others. This region is called the limbic system, or you may have heard about the reptilian brain. One of the largest and most important regions is amygdala. There's also hypothalamus and so forth, and they are responsible for triggering the survival reflexes and cortisol and so forth. So amygdala can get hijacked. When that happens with strong emotional signals, the amygdala will go into overdrive. And it will actually override the activity in our prefrontal cortex. So amygdala is responsible for receiving the emotions. And when the signals are really strong, like highly emotionally charged situations, we get badly triggered, the amygdala goes into hijack mode. And the prefrontal cortex, which is, of course, responsible for reasoning, for logic, but also for empathy and for emotional regulation. The prefrontal cortex, it gets deactivated, not completely shut down, but the amygdala is holding the reins. So when we are in a state of amygdala hijack, our clarity goes down. Right? Like we cannot think clearly. We get this tunnel vision, a foggy brain. We are focusing on the threat. Our resources are going essentially to the fight, flight, or freeze reaction, right? So the blood goes into our limbs, into our legs, so that we can run, into our arms, or the system completely shuts down. So in these states, we have very little clarity and very little control. Like we cannot control the initial emotional reaction. But even though this is physiology, it is not an excuse. We do have a choice point. So while we cannot control the initial reaction, we can certainly take ourselves out of that state with certain tools. And we can control the response. This is why we need to understand our triggers, because once we are badly triggered, we might as well ride the wave, because it's really difficult to stop it once you are in that amygdala hijack. But if you detect the trigger before you reach that point of no return, then you can employ these tools to talk yourself out of it, or to do certain exercises to get out of the amygdala hijack. All right, we want prefrontal cortex to take over so that we can behave in a rational way. We can control the emotions, we can regulate them. So how do we do that? Well, we need to disrupt the hijack. So what we do is we name the emotion, we name the trigger, we identify what is really going on. We take action, whether it's a breathing exercise, just close your eyes, breathe in through your nose, hold your breath for a few seconds, exhale through the mouth, and that will calm down the amygdala. Another way, actually, the counting to 10, there is a reason for that. And that is because it focuses on something tangible, something that requires your prefrontal cortex, and it forms the bridge to activation of the prefrontal cortex and takes the wind out of the sail of the amygdala. So if you find these things interesting, there is an entire series on the science of energy. I invite you to follow me, send me a direct message, connect with me, or schedule a quick free consult so that we can look at what your needs are and see if we would be a good fit and could help you or your team to become the magnetic leader that you are underneath. So stay tuned, more of these are coming.